Evening, everyone. Welcome to the regular meeting of Malahide Council on January 16, 2025. Hope everyone enjoyed a nice long Christmas break. And I'd like to call the meeting to order at 7:02. And now we're verifying that the audio is working. That's good. We'll begin with the approval of the agenda. I know we do have one additional items to put in closed session. Did you want to read the name of the item, please?
Yep, so an additional item to section P, closed session, a personnel matter about an identifiable individual, including a municipal or local board employee, section 239(2)B.
Thank you for that. Any other additions? Changes? No? We'll proceed with the resolution, please.
That the January 16th, 2025 regular council meeting agenda be approved as presented with the following additions. Section P, personnel matters about an identifiable individual, including municipal or local board employee, section 239(2)B.
Mover and seconder. Councillor Lewis moves. Councillor Cerna seconds. All in favor? That is carried. Next is disclosure of pecuniary interest. Deputy Mayor Widner.
Yes, thank you. I have several. PW 2501, the Learn Drain, PW 2502, the Glencolin Drain, and under the grants, the Harvest Bowl and Springfield Community Policing, because I'm on the board of both of them. And I just ask if we bundle those two together, save getting up and down.
Thank you.
Use the chairs.
Any other? Okay, announcements. Okay, moving on to adoption of minutes. So we have the minutes from our last meeting, December 19th. Any errors or omissions? Seeing none, we have the resolution.
That the minutes of the regular meeting of council held on December 19th, 2024 be adopted.
Mover and seconder, please. Councillor Cerna moves. Councillor Leach seconds. All in favor? That is carried. Okay, there are no public meetings, no delegations, so we'll move to approval of business. Under the consent agenda. Oh, where was it this time? Right. Oh, I see. We're moving directly to, yeah, so there was nothing under the consent agenda from our last meeting. So we go directly under unfinished business. So there's one item, so that's a follow-up. Did you want to comment on that, Clerk Adams?
Yes, so just this resolution is required as one of the conditions of severance, so that certain agreements can now be signed that have been prepared as a result of a road widening and turning circle for these two severances.
Thank you. Can I have a resolution then?
That severance applications E13-23 and E18-23 presented to council on May 16th, 2024 were approved with the recommended conditions, and that condition 7 for E13-23 and condition 6 for E18-23, which require land dedications for consent approval, including a turning circle and road widening on Woolleyville line, be fulfilled, and that upon completion of these conditions, the mayor and clerk be authorized to sign any necessary agreements.
Thank you. Mover and seconder, please. Councillor Lewis moves. Councillor Cerna seconds. Any discussions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? That is carried. Next, under new business, the first item is the fire protection grant. Director Spoor.
Through you, Mayor. This report just basically outlines the province for the first time in a number of years has allocated some money towards the fire service in the province. So they've allocated $30 million over 3 years. First year being of the $10 million was allocated for cancer prevention initiatives and stuff like that. So we applied for the grant to install extractors, which are basically washing machines for their bunker gear, in Station 4 in Lions and also in Station 5. In the South Station. We do have one here and now in the station here. But again, when you have 70 firefighters and the gear gets dirty all at once, it's pretty hard to get back into service. So we reapplied for that. The allocation of funds throughout the province was allocated by how many fire stations you had. So we were maximum money we got for 3 stations. So that gave us enough to do one of the extractors for this year. So the grant came out to just under $25,000, which will cover the full expense of the washing machine and the installation for the plumber to do some changes and stuff and get that done. So we're looking here today just for the council's approval for be able to have myself and Director Borland on behalf of the township get that funds and get that project going. So it's good to see the province starting to give some money to the municipalities for the expenses for the township. I expect that the money next year will be for a similar project, in which case we'll reapply again and try to have one again installed at this in the station and the Lion Station as well. So
Thank you.
if anybody has any other questions, I'm
Yes.
happy to answer. So
Wonderful. Thank you. Good news indeed. Questions or comments? Seeing none, the resolution?
That report number F-2501 entitled Fire Protection Grant be received for information, and that the Malad Council approves and authorizes the agreement between the township and the province, granting the Director of Fire and Emergency Services and the Director of Corporate Services the authority to execute the grant agreement on behalf of the township.
Mover and seconder, please. Counselor Wilson moves, Counselor Leach seconds. All in favor? That is carried. The next item is the Learn Drain extension.
Okay, thank you, Madam Mayor. Through you to council, report PW 2501, the Learn Drain Extension, is a report that is probably easiest explained if you start with the aerial map looking on page 55 of your agenda. Council may recall that in 2024, we assigned an engineer to look at the Learn Drain and the state of disrepair that portion of it was in. So we've assigned an engineer, and as through their initial work on this, the background of this drain, one of the things they did notice is if you look at our map, you'll see a blue dashed line that kind of ends at the one property line. For some reason, back in 1926, that is where they decided that the Learn Drain was going to terminate. What that means is that the piece further east, that yellow line, which is an open ditch portion of a drain that the Learn Drain discharges into, is not actually holding any status as a legal and adequate outlet for the drain. So what we are recommending at this point is that the Learn Drain extension be looked at, and that piece of private ditch that is highlighted in yellow and further highlighted with purple there is to be incorporated as part of the Learn Drain to give us a legal and adequate outlet for that, the drainage works here. Really, this is more of an exercise in just cleaning up the paperwork and the notifications. The Johnson Drain does come from the south of Chalet Line, and the Learn Drain and the Johnson Drain tie together. So we're proposing through this as well to rename or abandon a portion of the Johnson Drain and incorporate it as well into the Learn Drain, so that it's all the open channel basically will be now part of the Learn Drain. And the Johnson Drain, which is a closed tile system, will remain all closed tile. They will combine together and head into that bush lot where that is what has been deemed the ultimate final legal outlet for these drains. So the purpose of all of this is just to have this recognition made and get the engineer the authorization to incorporate all these additional works into his work as we're cleaning up this drain. If there's any other questions, I would gladly answer.
Thank you. Questions, comments? Counselor Leach.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The little hanging portion of the Johnson Drain, is the Johnson Drain going to be incorporated into the full capacity? Is it going to run parallel? Is that little chunk going to feed into the larger project?
Through you, Madam Mayor, to Councillor Leach. It's a good question for clarity. The mapping on this isn't the greatest in the sense that what looks to be a little tail of the Johnson Drain is not. That Johnson Drain actually does continue south under Chalet Line, and it services the lands on the south side of the road. So essentially where the convergence of that yellow, purple, and red are will become the new end of the Johnson Drain. And the Learn Drain will be extended as open ditch through the dashed light blue and following that path of yellow all the way into the woods. So that will become all Learn Drain. Johnson will be terminated at the point that it enters the Learn Drain.
Does any updates or adjustments need to be made to other portions of the Johnson Drain, or it just staying from that point south stays as is?
Through you, Madam Mayor, the Johnson Drain enclosed portion, which is south of there, right now there's been no scheduled work. There will be nothing changed there. There will be an update made to the Johnson Drain assessment schedule, effectively removing that open portion of drain from that assessment schedule and inserting it into the Learn Drain assessment schedule. The amount of apportionment and property owners affected does not change. It's basically we're taking it out of one book and putting it in a different book.
Thank you.
Thank you for those clarifications. Anything else? Any further comments, questions? Seeing none, we'll proceed with the resolution then.
Report number PW 2501 entitled Learn Drain Extension be received, and that the extension of the Learn Drain be included in the engineer's report currently being prepared by Mike DeVos of Spreed Associates pursuant to Section 78 of the Drainage Act RSO 1990.
Mover and seconder, please. Counselor Glinski moves. Counselor Cerna seconds. All those in favor? That's carried. Next is another drain. This one's a petition for drainage. The Glen Colin Line, Director Gottlieb.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Through you to council. PW 2502 is a petition for drainage on Glen Colin Line. Again, this is some work that has come up as a result of another neighboring drainage petition. So as council may recall, in June 2024, we accepted what was called the Wagler petition for some properties just to the east of the intersection of Carter Road and Glen Colin Line, where there were some properties looking to get some drainage improvements. As we have an engineer assigned and are looking at this work, we've had some conversations internally with our drainage superintendent and our manager of roads and construction, who have identified that really that intersection of Carter Road and Glen Colin Line could definitely benefit from some drainage improvement. And in order to do that, we do require a legal and adequate outlet. Therefore, we have signed a petition as the road authority to have that area highlighted on page 58 of your agenda on the little map there, to have the engineer give consideration to providing an outlet for this area as well into the other drainage works that is being done in the area. Essentially, at a high level concept, what we're looking at would be kind of directing that water south down Carter Road, where it would then eventually outlet into the Wagler petition. So all of this is basically just being done as a proactive measure on the township's part so that when we do have future work done on this, that we can have a place to tie in and discharge our water. If there's any questions, I will gladly answer.
Councillor Leach.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So the Iker drain will have no part of this because it's north of the area in question?
That is correct. All the drainage in that area is generally running towards the south. So preliminarily, it looks like we'll basically be looking kind of south of Glen Cullen line. You can just see the edge of that farm in the photo where there will be potentially in some new drainage solution heading kind of south and west. And then we would run from Carter Road south and connect the two together. But that would give us a place where we could actually discharge our road surface water.
Thank you.
Any further questions or comments? Seeing none, resolution?
The report number PW 25-02 entitled Petition for Drainage Glen Cullen Line be received, and that the Director of Public Works or his designate be authorized to add the Township of Malahide to the existing regular petition for drainage under Section 4 of the Drainage Act.
Mover and seconder, please. Councillor Lewis moves, Councillor Glinski seconds. All in favor? That is carried, I think. Okay. Next item, another drain update. All right. Okay, so, yep, the Deputy Mayor can join us for the drain update.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Through you to council, report PW 2503 is a drain update report, and this is just a generalized listing of the number of drain projects that we currently have on the go. They're listed there alphabetically, talking with a minor status update for each drain. You can see that there's a few on that list that we have now completed construction. They were 2024 projects. We've got a few others that have been slated for construction in spring of 2025. Others are in the design stages. And unfortunately, there are a few that are lingering for various technical reasons. One, for example, the Cook drain, we've been waiting for MTO approval for a bit of time on that one. Then there's others that are just waiting for the design and construction. So if there's any questions that council has specifically about any of these drains or any additional information that you're looking for, just please ask, and we can definitely dig that up for you. But we just wanted to kind of keep this rolling as to general update as to what's going on in the world of municipal drainage. Any other questions? I'd be happy to answer.
Thank you. Questions? Comments? Councillor Leach?
Thank you. I appreciate the full report to give us an idea, because we see some of these come across, but until you see the full scope of it, there's a lot of going on in that department.
Thank you for that. There are no further comments or questions. We'll proceed with the resolution, please.
The report number PW 2503 entitled Drain Update Report be received.
Mover and seconder, please. Councillor Leach moves, Councillor Lewis seconds. All in favor? That is carried. Next on the agenda, we have bylaws. We can pass those as one resolution. They've been presented to council before. Maybe with the exception of 2504. Director Gottlieb, do you want to provide a quick update on the road assuming bylaw, then the portion of Springwater Road?
Sorry, just bear with me 1 second. I'm having an IT issue here. There we go. Thank you, Madam Mayor. Through you, the purpose of this bylaw is essentially just more of an internal housekeeping item than anything. What happened is through the process of a neighboring land transaction, it was discovered that a portion of Springwater Road was never fully properly deeded to the municipality I think over 100 years ago. So through that process, we've just worked with the neighboring property owners and their legal teams in order to have the road properly surveyed and conveyed over to the township and properly dedicated and opened as a highway. So it's really something that had gone on for a long time, and it takes sometimes until you get lawyers digging into title searches and stuff to realize that maybe something got missed way long ago. So we're just correcting that.
Thank you for that background. Comments or questions? Seeing none, resolution, please.
That the following bylaws be now read a first, second, and third time and finally passed. Bylaw 2501, establish fire and emergency fees. Bylaw 2502, 2025 municipal water rates. Bylaw 2503, 2025 municipal sewage rates. And Bylaw 2504, road assuming bylaw, portion of Springwater Road.
Thank you. Mover and seconder, please. Counselor Cerna moves. Counselor Leach seconds. All in favor? That is carried. Okay, this brings us to the Committee of the Whole section, resolution to move into Committee of the Whole, please.
Resolved that we do now move into Committee of the Whole.
Thank you. Mover and seconder, please. Counselor Lewis moves. Counselor Leach seconds. All in favor? That is carried. Okay, so for the committee this week, business for consideration, the first item is the community grants requests. I don't know if Director Boylan, you wanted to kick off the discussion, just a quick overview?
Certainly. This report summarizes the Community Grant Committee's assessments of the 2025 community grant applications and provides the rationale for the recommendations to council in the report. So of the $91,450 requested, the committee recommends approving 43,910 of these applications, as I've detailed in the report. This is lower than the township's current budget allocation of $48,000. So tonight, council does have the opportunity to either approve or otherwise amend the committee's recommendations. Upon approval, staff will send out letters to all applicants regarding council's decisions tonight. And we have the committee and staff on hand to provide any other details that aren't included in the report as council may request.
Thank you for that. And as we open the discussion, I want to also say that I think the committee's recommendation, and I think the council's position does not reflect either the value of what these organizations do. We have, and the benefits to the community. As you know, this year, the committee fine-tuned the policy so that it would be as objective as possible and that it would be based really on the financial needs of the organization, not on the benefit or the value of what they do for the community. So I just wanted to make that really, really clear, because we appreciate certainly all of the work that everybody does on behalf of the community. So you have the recommendation before you from the committee. I'll open it up for council discussion or comment from committee members. Committee did a good job. Councillor Wilson.
Is that it? There we go. With the Springfield Brewers and now the Springfield Stingers, the present board didn't know they were gonna be on the board when the grant dates were, the deadlines were. So I know it's, you know, they passed the deadline to be getting grants, but I just wanted to sort of bring it up while we're talking about it, and whatever we can do to help them and however that needs to happen, definitely like to support getting the, because if there's no kids learning how to play baseball in Springfield, we won't have to worry about keeping the diamonds open later. So anything we can do to help support that. I know that it doesn't specifically go through this grant process because of the timing of stuff, but I just wanted to bring it up while we're speaking about grants. Thanks.
Thank you for that. So maybe before we discuss that, one consideration for council could be that, for example, the committee did not allocate the full amount, like after everything was added up and every application was discussed on its own merit. I'm wondering, I mean, things like that happen. Like, yes, we have a program, we have deadlines, but there will be things that are unplanned, unanticipated, and perhaps like really good opportunities for the community. And I'm wondering if council would consider then setting like the balance that we had allocated initially, setting that aside for kind of impromptu ad hoc applications, but the organization would go through the same process. So it's the same, so we would not change the criteria. I think it should go through the committee and they would be judged on the same merit, but I think we could show some, that things happen. And sometimes it could be an opportunity last minute and we could show a little bit of agility. So thoughts on that? Because at that point, that I mentioned that now, because then perhaps the recommendation could be that they would still apply, but they would be considered through the same criteria, but as an ad hoc sort of application. Counselor Cerna.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I think at one time, did we not have something to that effect in place that we had some money set aside as an, I don't know if you want to call it an emergency contingent, but we had some money left over that we set aside that in case something came up that was necessary, that we could allocate that money to a specific purpose if it was deemed worthy by council. I thought we had that already in place.
I don't know if Director Boylan or anyone else, I don't know, like specifically for like a community grant type, like quote unquote reserve.
We have like a general contingency reserve for something of this nature. It's so small. Like there's so many estimates in the budget. I would say it falls within like the margin of error of our estimates. Like if we're talking a few $1,000s here or there, it's not a big deal. I don't think we even need to like designate a reserve to cover those things. And as Mayor Giguère mentioned, we haven't fully allocated our existing budget as is. I think there's about $4,000 left over. So I definitely think there's some wiggle room there. And if there's a worthy cause, I don't think, like I agree, I don't think we should be so rigid in our approach. If there's something that comes forward that council wants to approve and support, I think you should go ahead and do so. The amount of money we're talking doesn't really affect the budget at a high level in any sort of significant way.
Counselor Lewis?
Yeah, as a committee member, I'd support that idea. That's a good idea, actually.
Yeah, and then certainly we would encourage everybody to stick by the deadline to be fully, because if you go outside, you don't know how much would be left at the end. So we wouldn't try to have like a two-stream process, but it would be like just to accommodate kind of unanticipated ask. Deputy Mayor Widner?
If we're going to move on, the Elmer and Area Chamber of Commerce. They may be reading the thing they want 10,000. We were saying maybe 3. I don't see any information on what it's going to do for Malahide or the events are going to be held in Malahide. They say maybe, but it's pretty tough to give any money till I see any proof of what they want to do in Malahide. My opinion. Thank you.
Actually, Director Boylan, and I think in the report it says the committee had requested additional information. So the amount that the committee recommended was conditional to receiving information on how it would promote Malahide. Did we receive any correspondence back?
No, so I had drafted a letter. I'd shared it with the committee that kind of shared the committee's message just to make sure it was true to what they were looking for. And we sent that off to the applicant using the applicant's information that they put on the form. And we haven't received a response to date. But yeah, the committee's wishes were essentially to conditionally approve $3,000. I think the request was 10,000. We were saying 3,000 if there was something that would bring people into Malahide, make it just not an Elmer only kind of event.
And in that correspondence, did we give a deadline by which to reply? I mean, essentially, today would kind of be the deadline for council to consider.
I don't believe we did. That being said, it's been a few
A few
months now,
months, yeah.
maybe a couple months. I would have expected a response by now.
Right. So technically, the committee's recommendation is almost to not approve because they haven't met the condition that was set by the committee. Because I think the committee shared that concern. Councillor Cerna.
Smokers cough. My recommendation is to not approve it because when you read their agenda for the whole thing, it's all Elmer. There's nothing Malahide about it other than the title, Elmer and area. So they're asking us to fund 1/3 of the entire thing just to be called area. I think that's a little much. So I'm thinking, forget it.
Okay, so that would take, Director Boylan, you had included the 3,000 in the 43 total. Okay. So that will reduce it to 40 something, 910. And that could also go in the sort of emergency impromptu, a good idea that the committee would like to consider through an application process. Okay. Further comments or discussion? Councillor Leach.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. As a council representative to the Aylmer and Malahide Museum and Archive Board, I would like to advocate on their behalf for a slight bump in the committee's allocation of 5,000 to assist them with the presentation of our community's history.
So I see a couple of options, so that could be discussed by council right now, or could be referred back for the committee reconsideration in light of, maybe some changes that we've, like the totals have changed just based on the Elmer Festival decision, or at least proposal. So would the committee like to consider Councillor Leach suggestion as a committee? Councillor Cerna.
I think it should go back to committee before we discuss it now. If you don't mind.
It seems agreeable, and perhaps by then we'll receive a last minute application from the baseball club. Hint, hint, nudge, nudge. So there's your chance. So that would actually warrant, make it worthwhile for the committee to then reconsider items after this evening. Okay. Any further comments, questions, requests? Clerk Adams? I can stall a little bit longer as necessary.
Let's see. The report FIN 2501 entitled Community Grant Request be received for information, and that the committee recommend to council that the community grants in the amount of 40,910 be approved and distributed as recommended by the Community Grants Committee, with the exception of the Elmer and Area Chamber of Commerce event and that the committee requests the grant application of the Springfield Stingers to be submitted for review by the committee, and that the committee requests an increase to the Elmer Malahide Museum grant be reviewed.
Nicely done. Mover and seconder. Counselor Lewis moves, Counselor Wilson seconds. Any further discussion or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? That is carried. Thank you. So that brings us to us going back to the 2025 budget discussions. So we've had a nice long break to ponder further, but perhaps it has been a while. So perhaps Director Boylan, do you want to recap a little bit where we left the initial presentation just before Christmas?
Certainly. So at our last meeting in December, the 2025 budget was tabled with a proposed 4% increase to the township's property tax rates. That equated to an $81 annual increase for the average residential property owner. So during that meeting, we reviewed the causes of this increase. The vast majority of the new tax funding was to be directed towards bolstering the township's infrastructure program primarily. Council did offer some substantive high-level commentary on areas that they would like to explore further in addition to the project set that we had identified in the strategic plan and the capital budget. These included a comprehensive review of road standards and service levels, incorporating a discussion on roadway performance and investment options, the consideration of a gravel roads conversion program, including a comparison of gravel road costs versus hardtop surfaces, and the development of a waste management master plan to evaluate the township's current garbage and recycling practices. Additionally, there were some smaller requests and inquiries, such as placement of a park bench at the skate park, and a request for staff to address a potential issue with dog waste in Port Bruce. Those items we believe we can accommodate in the proposed operating budget, and have considered these to be formal directions from council to staff to include in our work plans for 2025. So for tonight's meeting, staff are happy to address any other questions council may have, or any questions council's heard from the public during the last month review period. Whenever we are satisfied with the content of the budget, we can provide a resolution for council to pass through the committee of the whole potentially tonight. If we do that tonight, then it will be brought back for final approval on January 30th by council. Happy to answer any questions council may have.
Thank you for that recap and update, Counselor Cerna.
Just one question. You said it's $81 per household, the increase. What's that household value based on? Like, what are you figuring on that?
That was the 264,000 median assessment provided by MPAC for our 2025 roll.
And you consider that reasonable, that an average household value in Malahide is $260,000?
The average household in Malahide definitely would sell much higher than 264,000, but they're being assessed at 264,000 because they're based on 2016 assessment values. So that 264,000 is actually a statistical objective measure provided in our data set in our assessment roll. It is the mathematical median assessment value of residential property.
Can you tell me that in English now? It's like talking to the doctor, you know? Jesus.
Your properties are taxed based on how they are assessed in 2016. So yes, a property in 2025 is definitely going to sell for more than 264,000 in 2025. But again, our role and how we're going to tax our residents is based on their assessment, which last took place in 2016, where property values were much lower.
I mean, at the end of the day, it's just a number to put the levy increase in context, like, so everybody can roughly do the math. It's like, okay, if my house is then double that value, then I can see that the impact on me will probably be about double. Do you know what I mean? It's really just a number. I don't think it's, yeah. It's not a reflection, and we know, of the true value
Well, I'm
of the
fixing
average.
I'm fixing a house, and between the windows and the floor, it sure as hell $260,000 didn't go very far.
And that's why a lot of municipalities are advocating for MPAC to finally, like, we're approaching 10 years now of, assessment update, so.
Like,
It's-
it's a good selling point when you tell somebody it's $81 increase.
Yeah.
But, and you're talking cutting back services. Well, yeah, why? Because you're not keeping up with the times here. And it just, to me, it's deceiving.
I don't think it's meant, just to be fair, it's not meant to deceive, it's meant just as a reference point, so everybody can do their own math. Roughly, if your value is 3 times that, then you do times 3. It's not meant to
Right,
represent something specific.
but that's the point I'm trying to make, that your value is gonna be 3 times as much as 260,000. But the
But not at
assessments-
the moment. So
yeah,
I've got a few hands. Deputy Mayor, I think I saw your hands first, then I'll go with CEO and then Councillor Wilson.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I guess I'll go through to Adam. Those values would have been set by impact, wouldn't they?
Yeah, they're set by impact. They're set by impact in 2016.
So it's not us doing it. And one misnomer there is if they double or triple, doesn't mean your taxes are going to double or triple. And a lot of people think that's true and that is not.
That is the most common misconception that people have about property taxes. In fact, mathematically, if everyone's assessment tripled, everyone's paying the exact same in taxes. Property assessment is a way of taking our levy, say it's $9 million, and portioning it out. But we're never going to collect more than $9 million. We set that through the budget. If we're saying we're only going to collect $9 million in property taxes, that's all we'll collect. Assessment is just who pays how much of the $9 million.
Just had a follow-up too.
Yes, please go ahead.
I guess we can discuss some of the items in the budget now. One that I brought up was the $50,000 cost for the studies review. I do have some calls on that one, and that's an awful lot of money to review something. Is this something we could maybe split into over a period of 2 years, or is there any way to make this cheaper? Because 50 grand is a lot of money.
And just to be, that's the official plan review, right, that you're referring to? Okay. Do you want to comment on that?
Yes, and with regard to 2 points there, with regard to again, just assessed value is the most important element is proportionality. I mean, you're looking at it with regard to how much we're levying onto different properties. So again, it has a baseline as was mentioned by mentioned here. With regard to the official plan review, I had an opportunity to speak with our planning consultant, and we're going to be sharpening a pencil here and working with fine-tuning the scope of it. It is a bit difficult to outline the whole scope. It's a number of changes that will be needed. In discussion, it was in between a housekeeping amendment and in between an overall review. So it would fall somewhere in between there with regard to the amount of work that would need to be done. That being said, we have control with regard to how much public consultation would be needed, for instance, in this, and how much of staff time consultation would be needed as well. Ultimately, we're looking at putting this into the operating budget and dealing with it from there. And there are a number of things that will take a bit of time. I know that the county is looking at updating its own growth projections. We're also trying to respond to preliminarily deal with the provincial policy statement updates, again, getting that incorporated with regard to partial servicing and additional dwelling units, and dealing with the domino effect of the policy in our official plan and then with our zoning bylaw. So it will take a bit of work, along with identifying, again, areas for our growth in the future as well. Again, that all being said, we'll aim towards putting it towards the operating budget and look at if there is any substantial increases in that, we may potentially look at covering it with our development services reserve. I don't know if Adam wants to have any comments with regard to the financing element to it.
Yeah, right now it's funded through a capital reserve, which funds our whole capital budget, there is a planning and development reserve. It was kind of a holdover from our last reserve structure. I think it was set up to cover potential OLT costs. So if we get an appeal, it could easily cost, $25,000 or whatever in legal fees. So there is a reserve. It's detailed in the budget document. I think there's something like $250,000. So that money is sitting there. If you want to repurpose that towards the official plan, that'd be perfectly fine with me.
Do you want to follow up?
Yeah, I would follow up on that, I guess. I mean, I understand these plans are essential. We have to have plans, but plans can always be tweaked if there is a situation. Now you say you can take it out of an account, but the money's still leaving the township. And I know I heard what you said, Nathan. Is there any estimate of anything cheaper? There's not really. No one knows. So is there not a way to do this over a period of 2 years, do we think? Or I'd like to see this down a lot because it's a lot of money. And at the end of the day, what are we going to get out of it besides a bunch of paperwork? So thank you.
And we're talking about the official plan. Okay. Yeah, because I know I've heard some concerns in the community that they thought this was towards a strategic plan, which is not. Like the strategic plan is done, we're implementing it. So there's no plan to revise that or to review that or to do further work. This is strictly the official plan, which is an official document we must have, and it has to align with the PPS. We have no choice, and because the PPS changed so drastically in August, there's more, as the CEO said, there's more than just the housekeeping work that needs to be done. So it's just yeah, there's no way around that. We have to align, and with the Elgin's official plan as well. So I don't know if there's further comments to be had, but we just wanted to make sure everybody was clear.
Yes, exactly that point. The hierarchy of the planning legislation requires our plan to be in conformity to the provincial policy statement and with regard to the county official plan. So again, that domino effect necessitates us to have these amendments put into place. It's essentially not discretionary. It's something that we have to do at this point. That being said, we can control the efficiency with regard to how we make those updates, and we'll work with our planning consultant. One of the first things that we can do is develop a letter of engagement that will provide a better estimate with regard to these costs, and we can take a look and see what sort of work in there is discretionary versus what will get us to the end point really quick, and have a better idea of what the total cost would come towards. But certainly not 50,000.
Just want to loop back to Councillor Wilson. I know we sort of changed topic, but did you want to go back to?
Oh, I was just going to comment, get ready for some phone calls when they do the MPAC adjustments and updates. It'll be a shocker to what the numbers are in that spreadsheet, that's for sure.
Yes, and that's where the fears come, that it will immediately mean an increase in taxes. So at the time, you're right, we'll do some good, try to explain and provide as much education as possible. The tax rate is based on the levy, not on the assessment.
And
we'll need to explain.
sort of along with the planning stuff here on page 120, just consulting budget was 54,000, forecast for 2024 is 177,000. I just wondered what that discrepancy is.
Director Boylan?
Yes, you'll note that not only did the expense line go up, but so did the revenue line. So our process is we assign our planning consultant to an application, and then we end up billing their costs directly to the applicant. What was happening in the past was that those costs were not being included in our revenue, and the expense for those application files were not being included in the expense. So we grossed both up to make it more accurate in terms of like, what are we actually spending on consultant costs, regardless of how much we're recovering from application fees. I think this is a more accurate way to report it. It's a shame it wasn't done that way in the past, but I think this is a more accurate representation. Yeah. Yeah, the revenue line went up as well. I guess be my comment.
Thank you for that. Counselor Leach and then Counselor Glinski.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Because the province has kind of caused the domino effect for the official planner, is there any funds from the province for this?
Not from the province. I will note that this is a development charge funded initiative as well. We didn't detail that in the capital budget. It's something like 70%. Obviously, this has a huge growth element to it. It's a plan about how we're going to grow. DCs are meant to cover off growth related costs. So it won't, the majority of it won't actually fall in the tax base anyway.
Thank you.
Thank you for clarifying that. Good question. Counselor Glinski.
Madam Mayor, the official plan in the past didn't always just take 1 year. It took several years to go through. So if we look at it as several years, maybe the costs should be spread over several years as opposed to at one time. Thank you.
Yeah, and I think the way we're gonna basically charge as time is being invested as opposed to estimating the end costs. We will do it incrementally, I think is what I understood.
That's correct. And this is again, just an update. So it's not the full review. That would be based on passing a current one in 2022. The next full review would be aimed at happening in 2027.
Deputy Mayor?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. So really, we could allocate 30,000, just to throw a number out. And that would help our budget, our tax rate, our tax increase, or whatever you want to call it. And we do have extra money if we need to top it up after, but it's just a thought. I don't know. I'm kind of getting the information that maybe it's not going to be all that much, but no one knows. But somebody come up with 50 grand. I mean, that's a good number, but it's still 3/4 of a point. So just trying to save a few bucks.
I wouldn't necessarily recommend that the tax increase for 2025 change based on just that $50,000 cut. Remember, we are drawing something like 2 million plus from reserves as well. Like it's kind of a drop in the bucket at the end of the day. I wouldn't recommend cutting. The increase would have to be cut for the contribution to our capital program, which like we have a significant annual deficit that we're trying to deal with, right? So I don't know that this is just a reserve funded item. Like I don't know that I'd recommend any changes regardless of whether we call it a $50,000 OP or a $30,000 OP. And in fact, even saying most of it is funded through DCs, like this, it's a pretty minor impact on the capital reserve itself anyway, like the tax funded reserves.
Right, so it doesn't impact the levy itself, because the levy is what we need to, like, if we would like to shave off on the percentage increase, we would have to shave off the levy. But this will come from other funds anyway. Okay, any further comments, questions? Are there any other items? I think we're kind of left open. I think we covered. There will definitely be further discussions during the year. I think probably more decisions for 2026 budget around the roads, around waste management. Councillor Wilson?
Yes, hopefully this is where I should ask the question. Just about the 0 in the column for the booth at the Ball Diamond for this year. Just wondering.
Yeah, that's a
If-
good point, actually. It's worth clarifying. Maybe Director Boylan or Godby?
Yeah, we know that our current tenant wasn't returning and that what we were hearing was the fee was a little bit too much to make it financially worthwhile potentially for tenants. So setting that budget as 0 wasn't a decision to close down the concession stand. It was more that we're kind of pessimistic about collecting what was a $5,000 revenue budget. I think our opinion is that council just wants the service to be there for users. It's not really like a revenue generating thing necessarily that council cares about. So we set it as a 0 revenue budget just to be conservative. We weren't sure if we'd even get a tenant. And if we did get a tenant, what kind of fee are they paying? Perhaps nothing. We weren't sure if anyone would even be interested. So that's why we set that as 0. It doesn't mean that we're closing down the concession booth. And I think Director Godby does have some updates in that regard. He's been working with some potential tenants.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you, Adam. Yes, on that point, as Adam highlighted, our tenant from last season did not wish to return, citing the financial issue being a big matter. So we did not include it as a budget item, as revenue coming in. I am actually in the process right now of preparing an expression of interest document. Basically, it's a fishing exercise where we're going to throw out some basic information, seeking proposals from individuals or companies that may be interested in taking over concession operations for the 2025 season. And we're hoping that we could have that kind of in and around the start of March to be able to come back to council with, some sort of news. Hopefully it's news that we've got somebody that we're going to recommend going into business with for the year. But that process is in the works right now, and we're hoping that we do get some applicants and get some interest to try and keep that concession running through the course of this year.
So in the request for interest, will it state that there is no fee?
Madam Mayor, I have not put that in there. I was generally remaining silent that the 2024 fee was $5,000 for rental of the facility for the year. However, I was including language saying that if, alternative suggestions would not be immediately rejected. So there may be those out there that recognize that a rental fee and $5,000, they can work that into their business plan and are willing to pay. There may be those that are not. At this point, I don't want to have a hard exclusion of anyone who might be interested in running that facility, recognizing that in an ideal world, we would have it open for all those outside baseball organizations, events that they have going on, tournaments, regular season games, all those things. That if that is council's ultimate end goal, I don't want to be limiting by saying, no, it's going to be $5,000 or else don't even talk to us.
That's, I guess, good to hear, because it makes a big difference to have the booth open. When I was coming in sideways into the parking lot when my kids were younger and playing, I liked getting my fried pickles and some other stuff for supper, because that's the first chance I had to eat was coming in there. So it's, when people come in and it's not open that often, it's that just means people get out of the habit of using it if it's open, and I'd rather see the service there than necessarily making a bunch of money off of for the township.
I can appreciate the open language, open door language, but I'm wondering if council just wants to provide direction that we consider this a service, it's important, and we can just come out and be very clear and say there is no fee because we want the best vendor, the one who's willing to open as often as we could provide that direction and just make that a starting point as opposed to some people might hesitate, don't want to have to negotiate, don't want to, but council's opinion on that, Councilor Cerna?
My opinion would be if we could just break even. Like, it shouldn't cost us anything to run a booth. But if somebody runs the booth and it costs them $100 a month to run the booth, then give us $100. Oh, it's that simple. We're not trying to make money off the booth, but it's a break even deal for, it's not, we're not charging them an arm and a leg, and yet it's not costing the taxpayers something, because somebody in Port Bruce who doesn't play ball in Springfield that probably doesn't want to pay for it. It's that whole thing, but yeah, if you can run it so that they pay their own way, then to me, that's fine.
Director Gottlieb and I'll come back to you, Counselor Lewis.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just on that point, I completely agree with what you're suggesting. The issue that we do have is how do we calculate what their operational cost is? Unfortunately, due to the setup of that building, there's not sub-metering, so we don't know what their hydro, water and gas consumption is there. That's really, those are really those utility costs are really the costs that the municipality is going to incur as a result of it being operating. Whether those are really substantial or not on the grand scheme of the township and on the grand scheme of that facility, I would suggest that they likely are not. But really that $5,000 fee was really intended to cover those utility costs and the provision of basic cleaning supplies. That being said, cleaning and maintenance of the facility could also be something that is completely transferred to the tenant instead of us incurring that. So I think we could really drill that down to be a significantly lower value. If it is, $1,000 or $2,000 for the year, great. If it is zero, as been suggested, that is also easy and maybe appealing as well. So we're just willing to do whatever council would like to see happen here. Staff are willing to support that and do what we can to get somebody in there.
Go to Counselor Lewis first, and I'll come back to you, Counselor Cerna.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I would never advertise free. Because you're gonna get guys in their barbecues that think they're gonna make a gold mine, and they can, so free is not really an advertisable thing on my perspective in anything I've ever done. I think Jason is more than capable of interviewing people and knowing and just saying, yeah, this is a fully negotiable contract right now. We have no set price. If you feel $100 a month is fair for the year, then let's do it at $100 a month. Make it so that they can survive. That's what we want, but there has to be a value there. If there's no value there to them, then there's nothing for them to walk away one night when somebody throws a burger back at them to just, here's your key, there's the mess, and I'm going away, because they have nothing invested. They have to have some ties. They have to have some commitment, whether it's a minimal commitment, because like you say, we're not here to make money. And like I say, he's fully capable of being able to, negotiate a small contract like this.
Good points, Counselor Cerna.
Yeah, thank you. I was basically gonna say the same thing, that it shouldn't be hard to figure out what it takes to run the booth. There's got to be a weekend where nothing's going on. There's got to be a weekend where there's a tournament, and all of a sudden your hydro spikes. So you take a look and say, oh, okay, something like that. So there has to be some minimal charge. There's no doubt about it. But like I said, we're not trying to make money on it. We're not, but it can't be, a freebie that everybody has to pay for. And it shouldn't, to me, it shouldn't be that hard to do. And if they're any kind of good caretaker, they're going to clean up after themselves anyways. So I think there's regulations for that, isn't there? If you're going to run a booth, you can't just leave it sloppy, unless you're like me. You can hardly wait till the wife comes home tomorrow. She's got a big surprise.
Director Gottlieb.
Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Counselor Leach.
Just further to that, through this process as well, any contractor that we would have, they obviously have to have all their standard liability insurances, health unit inspections. The health unit will do an inspection of our facility as well. So all of those kind of legalities will be covered off. So that can help prevent, you know, the fear of the guy with his barbecue that loves slinging burgers. You know, we can kind of weed those out because there still will be minimum, you know, risk management and mitigation type processes and measures in place to look after these things. So just from a process standpoint, we will be issuing this request for information to see if who out there that might be interested in having these conversations with the township. Send us your proposals. You know, it's going to include references, sample menus, all that kind of stuff. Staff will do a kind of a quick scrubbing of that information to make sure that we can bring forward that information and a solid recommendation to council prior to entering into any kind of agreement. So we'll be back here having another discussion about this, hopefully sometime in March.
Councillor Leach?
Thank you. So this will potentially be a lot harder to police, but would like a portion of their sales be something, one way to consider a reasonable fee?
Through you, Madam Mayor, we could definitely have that type of conversation about, you know, a profit share of some
Like a
sort.
percentage?
Yeah, you know, fee for service based on total revenue, percentage of total revenues or something like that could definitely be something entertained. And if anyone is listening, that'd be a good thing to include in your proposal for consideration.
Yeah, and I think the ECC did something similar in terms of doing a request for interest, and then everybody can offer the kind of stipulations that they would be willing to consider, flat fee sales, and then we'll leave it in your capable hands to negotiate and what would be best for the community. So I think we'll leave it at that. It sounds like you'll be able to navigate the line between clarity and openness. And I think once it's out, we can all promote, like, I remember for the ECC, we did like social media and the ad, like to generate interest in the community and letting everybody know that this is available for consideration. So good discussion. So back to the budget then. So where does that leave us? Any further? Deputy Mayor?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I just want some clarification. I'm looking at page 148 under the vehicle insurance. Is the vehicle insurance based on the actual vehicle they're insuring? Because they said in 2022, we were at 923, and in 2025, we're projecting $3,258. Did we buy a Raptor or something? Like that's a lot of money. Same with the fuel. I could see where it spiked at 14,000 in 2022. I think I maybe know why that is, but we're still at $8,500. We're projecting 6,000 this year. So just curious, is that all our fuel usage allocated to every individual vehicle when they get gas? It used to be, I remembered, but.
Yeah, fuel is allocated on a vehicle by vehicle basis. The insurance numbers are a bit more rough. We're not provided like a vehicle by vehicle quote from the insurance company, so we kind of rough it a little bit. I'm not sure. I think the 2022 fuel, it's hard for me to answer that question. It is a little while ago. I think it had to do with COVID. I think staff were taking their vehicles home as well. I could look into that one. I recall there being some higher fuel costs during that period where fuel prices spiked. I think there's a lot of contributing factors to that year in particular for fuel costs. But in terms of the insurance, that's something I have to look into. It almost looks like we went from allocating one vehicle to two vehicles in 2024, but I'd have to confirm that without having the details in front of me.
Okay, thank you for that. Because I was looking at your note number 2, it just said truck. And if it said trucks, I might have got 2, but as far as the fuel, whoever tuned that vehicle up then for 2023 did a heck of a good job because it cut wow, probably Scott did it. Yeah.
Yeah, because at some point we had additional vehicles, right? Because of COVID, we were renting and to split staff, or so that may have contributed to having.
We hired
Mhm. Okay, any further clarification or questions? So does it sound like, based on the discussion this evening and things where things are, how different topics are being closed off, does it look like the committee is prepared to make a recommendation for council or to council to approve the budget as presented today, perhaps with the change around the 50,000 for the OP would be moved to a different line, I think I understand. But there would be no other changes. Right, the 3,000, but that won't change the total amount because we're not allocating it to an organization, but we're keeping the total, the 48,000 in the budget as is, because we're keeping, it may be unspent by the end of the year. But it will still show at the same line as 48,000, just only 40,000 being allocated upfront. Okay, sounds like there might be consensus on that. Do you have a? We're looking at what the amendment should be to the budget based on what is on paper right now. So because we don't want to say as is there an amendment that would address the discussion on the OP, the official plan?
So I'm not sure exactly where we landed on that one, but if council's not comfortable with the $50,000 project budget, you can cut that. I guess my long-winded explanation is that I don't think it would affect the tax rate. That's not what I would recommend, but you can limit the amount that we would spend on that budget by saying we don't want a $50,000 budget. Maybe we want a $20,000 budget or whatever, just to limit the amount that the staff could potentially spend on that project. I think that would be appropriate, and we can reflect that in the resolution.
Do you have a preference, Deputy Mayor, in terms of just making it like a cap for
Well,
this
I think I already stated 30,000, so
1,000?
anybody else can throw their number in if they like. We'll have an auction sale.
Yeah, with regard to process, like we'll keep a running total with regard to our consultants. So should there be any circumstance that we for some reason have to go over that amount of 30,000, then we would come back and report back here and say, this is why we really need to do it. So you'll get that explanation.
The report number FIN 2432 entitled 2025 Draft Budget be received, and that the Committee of the Whole recommend to Council the 2025 draft budget in principle as presented, with the exception of the OP project to limit the OP budget to 30,000, and that the Committee of the Whole recommend to Council the approval of the user fee schedules for 2025 as presented in the 2025 draft budget.
Good job. Mover and seconder. Counselor Surinam moves, Counselor Lewis seconds. All those in favor? That is carried. Good work. So just a note then to the public, so that this was a recommendation of the Committee of the Whole. So there's still another 2-week window. If there are any further comments, council will consider the budget for final approval at its next meeting on January 30th. Certainly, Counselor Surinam.
Just through you, Madam Mayor, to Adam, you make this quite easy. I like it. I love it, actually. You make our job easier, and I always say this, you're only as good as the people you have working for you, and you make us look good. So thank you very much.
Thank you for that. Yeah, I think everyone agrees. It was. It was sure, it was a team effort with led by our Director of Finance, and much appreciated. It was well put together. So that brings us to correspondence. There are 8 items on the list. Any comments? Counselor Wilson?
Through you, Madam Mayor. I'm not sure if it was on this correspondence or whether it was a direct email. But basically it was about the the township is responsible for welfare rolls and this sort of stuff when it's actually more of a provincial matter. And I'm just not sure whether that was, I don't think it was in the 8, but it was in an email that, yeah, so I would like to support that one.
If we could bring it into the correspondence officially to our next meeting, and then that would give us the opportunity, because you're right, there was an email that was sent separately.
Okay.
And it was not received in the correspondence in this one. So good point.
Okay.
So we'll watch for it for the next meeting. So if there are no comments on this, we'll proceed to receive with the resolution, please.
Be it resolved that all correspondence items be received and filed.
Mover and seconder, please. Councilor Lewis moves, Councilor Wilson seconds. All in favor? That is carried. That's the end of the Committee of the Whole meeting, so we can adjourn.
Resolved that we do now move out of Committee of the Whole and reconvene the regular council meeting.
Mover and seconder, please. Councilor Serna moves, Councilor Leach seconds. All in favor? That is carried. This brings us to our closed session. So we can have a resolution to move into closed session, and we can consider a recess. Resolution.
That council move into closed session at 8:19 PM pursuant to Section 239(2) of the Municipal Act as amended to discuss the following. 1, a position plan procedure criteria or instruction to be applied to any negotiations carried on or to be carried on by or behalf of the municipality or local board relating to a township facility, Section 239(2)K. Number 2, a matter regarding labor relations or employee negotiations and personnel matters about an identifiable individual, including municipal employees, respecting a matter or relating to a job evaluation, Section 239(2)D and B. And number 3, a personnel matter about an identifiable individual, including municipal or local board employees, Section 239(2)B.
Thank you. Mover and seconder, please. Deputy Mayor Widner moves. Councilor Lewis seconds. All in favor? That is carried. Welcome back, everyone. We're ready to come out of closed session with the resolution, please.
That council move out of closed session and reconvene at 9:12 PM in order to continue with its deliberations, and that council direct staff to proceed with adjusting the position following the job evaluation reconsideration to the appropriate level and implementing the corresponding step increase, and that there is nothing further to report.
Thank you. Mover and seconder, please. Councilor Wilson moves. Deputy Mayor Widner seconds. All in favor? That is carried. Takes us to the confirmatory bylaw, please.
That bylaw number 2505 being a confirmatory bylaw be given first, second, and third readings and properly signed and sealed.
Mover and seconder, please. Councilor Serna moves, Councilor Lewis seconds. All in favor? That is carried. And adjournment.
The council adjourn its meeting at 9:13 PM to meet again on January 30th, 2025 at 7 PM.
Okay, mover and seconder, Deputy Mayor Widner moves, Councilor Serna seconds. All in favor? And that is carried. Thank you, everyone. Have a nice evening.